this video, I am going to be doing a national weather forecast. As you can see here, this is the Storm Prediction Center. There is a slight risk of severe weather centered in the plains. Today and tomorrow, there is very little to no risk for tornadoes. There is a 15% risk for heavy winds. There is a 15% risk for hail. Tomorrow, there is a marginal risk centered in the central U.S. There is a 5% wind risk. There is a 5% hail risk. Again, the main risk is going to be hail and wind. On day 3, there is a slight risk, and all the energy the next day probably will move further south and east. Here are the current conditions around the United States. The cold front will be moving off of the coast, and there's some convection making lightning strikes on the south end. The National Hurricane Center shows a 30% chance of development over the next 5 days. This tropical system may or may not form, as it has to fight some Saharan dust, as I will tell you about later. Here are the warnings across the U.S. In general, it's pretty calm, except for the southern U.S. and the western U.S. The yellow areas are where there is some iffy air quality, and the blue individual counties are where there are some power outages because of the cold front for the most part in this case. If you live in the Circle or areas like Dallas or Austin, Texas, or areas generally in that area, you guys just got a pretty nasty lightning storm, I believe, and you can see here that the lightning is moving into the Gulf of Mexico. Yellow is somewhat recent, gray isn't recent, and red is pretty recent. And this is what the lightning strikes we are looking at in the way of time. We see a few up in Oregon as well. In the eastern Pacific, we have a 80% chance of tropical development. We don't really have any invests except for 6W and the remnants of Claudette. Here is the model track guidance for 6W. These are the track and pressure models for 06W, and this is the GEFS tracks. Right here you can see the cold front moving out of the way, and you can also see the convection on the eastern and the southern side. Here is the satellite in motion. Here you can see the cold front, the low pressure system, and where some thunderstorms are currently happening. Here's the Atlantic, where you can see the remnants of Claudette, and you can see the potential tropical cyclone to develop later on. Late in the GFS run, basically towards the end, I believe around July 5th or 6th, you can see a potential tropical cyclone. Now, I am not going to say whether this one's going to develop or not because it's too far ahead to really know for sure. Here is a low pressure system in about 6 hours that may develop over the next 5 days. I, in my opinion, think it'll develop over the next 7 to 11 days. Here is the CDAS Niño 3.4 index, and we are in a neutral. Here are the sea surface temperatures, and the tropical system that might have a chance of forming is actually in favorable conditions in the way of sea surface temperatures at 28 degrees. The sea surface temperature anomalies show it very scattered. There are scattered areas of below average and scattered areas of above average, but the majority of the Atlantic looks to be around or slightly above average. Again, it's very scattered, but the majority of the Atlantic and Pacific seem to be on a cooling pattern on this one, actually. Here is the GFS radar in motion. As you can see, some rain starts developing in the Midwest and kind of fizzles out. Here you could see a cold front potentially developing, and boom, there, a cold front develops. Along with a low pressure system, it brings a lot of severe weather to the Midwest, Ohio Valley, just a little bit of rain, Northeast, some rain. A very unsettled weather pattern in the eastern United States while it's staying dry in the western United States. The central USA is mostly like the border here. However, the central USA has been seeing some severe weather recently, and if you live in Kansas, Oklahoma, or northern Texas, you might be getting a little bit of an unsettled pattern. Here is some of the severe storms reaching Illinois, in Missouri, in generally that area. And here's some of the southern showers and thunderstorms you see in the summer. And then here's some more of the cold front in the Ohio Valley. And then here it is moving into areas like New York City, in Boston, those areas. And then you can see another potentially developing up in Canada that might bring the central U.S. a little bit of rain, but it does fizzle out pretty quickly. And then there's a cold front here, about to hit Ohio. And then some spotty showers in the Midwest and central U.S. and plains. The severe weather on the 26th might be a windy one, you could say. The relative humidity here is somewhat concerning in the western and the eastern USA. The eastern USA is seeing very humid conditions, so there's a potential for severe weather. And then the western USA is seeing potentially wildfire level dry and drought like humidity. And this could be a big problem for wildfires. See here, in the western United States, it's very, very dry. And then let's go to this image, very dry mostly in the western USA and very wet in the eastern USA. And then dry again in the western USA here. Now this brings me to a wildfire risk, and if you live in the critical or elevated area or around it, make sure not to do too many things that involve fire risks. And see, it's going to be very, very, very warm. All across the map is going to be warm, especially in the western and central USA. In some cases, 90s reaching Canada. At one point, right there, 104 in southern Canada. The GFS may be exaggerating a little bit, but Either way, it's going to be very, very hot in the western and central USA. As you head into the eastern USA, it's going to be still quite warm. The heat is just going to be quite relentless. Now I just wanted to show you the dew point. It is going to be very dry in the western USA. Again, that could fuel some of those wildfires. And then also going to be very wet in the eastern USA. The 26th has on that severe weather outbreak, the potential severe weather outbreak, has a lot of velocity north of it, which could fuel this all. There's going to be a lot of energy in the atmosphere as well. As you can see, there's a lot of energy. And then on supercell composite, there could be some supercells. According to this, we're seeing purple right in there. That's the bullseye. And then energy helicity index is also quite high. We're not having a ton of wind shear, so there might not be too strong tornadoes. That's why it's not a huge tornado threat. Here is the simulated IR satellite with my forecast for today. Goodbye, thanks for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video.